There's a gun.
Nice.
Nice. I think that's yours.
That's cool. I don't care about me as much.
I don't care about me at all.
So, I saw him the second time, twice, and he's here in Ewing. He's going to be playing New York at the Cake Shop tonight.
Yeah, I think tomorrow night. Or, well, a night in the future. I'll probably be there again by the time. What do you call it? ADR it in. And
yeah, just Google Cake Shop and Christian Lee Hutson and look for the next
available
gig.
Okay, yeah.
Because hey, there's no reason why you won't keep going back there. I hear it's a good place.
Yeah.
For you.
Unless they run out of sweets and cake, and then I'm never going back there ever again.
They do have cake, right?
I don't know if they do. When I was there last time, I decided I was going to quit smoking that night. So I like everything. I was spent most of the time like hiding in the bathroom, trying not to go upstairs and have a cigarette while everyone went up and smoked. So I didn't experience any of that bar beyond the bathroom and the weird incline that goes down in the basement there.
I think that's kind of funny too, because I probably met you for the first time the night before.
Yeah, right night before I quit smoking.
It was like the same kind of tour. And I think you mentioned something about that. Now that you mention it now.
Yeah, I made the decision then I was going to quit smoking, and I think that was my last pack of cigarettes or something last time I was here.
Oh wow! So it's kind of a milestone returning tonight to the Cake Shop.
Yeah, I'm going to start smoking again.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, you should probably just get some crack or something.
Yeah, I'm going to go get just everything. I always said when I relapse, I'm going to do it all at one time, just, as hard as I can go. That's the only reason to abstain.
Right.
So that you can experience it all at once.
You're from California, I guess?
Yep.
You live in Nashville now?
I live in Nashville. Let's say that with air quotes, because I have spent no time there. But I technically have a house that has things that belong to me in it in Nashville.
Okay.
But yeah, I live in Nashville. I'll probably move from there pretty soon. Yeah, I'm not. I say I'm from California. I wasn't born there. I moved there when I was like 7 or something like that.
Okay.
From St. Louis, and so I was born in Kansas City, and lived with my mom in St. Louis, and then she remarried, and her husband lived in L.A., so we moved out there.
But the geographic stuff, informs some of your stuff, like the latest. I guess you could call it the latest single or latest video.
Yeah. That definitely.
Coast to Coast.
Yeah, Ghost to Coast was definitely about California, or about like Santa Monica, about Los Angeles in general.
Yeah, it's a great, honest kind of concept of turning the longing for the sunny beach, concept on
backwards,
the side. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what do kids in California? Kids in California grow up and the first thing they do when they graduate from high school is like, I'm moving to New York.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm moving somewhere where they move as far away from like any kind of place that's like a even, same weather every single day.
Was that your first music tour? Or?
Yeah, well, the first time I ever came to New York would have been, I guess, the first time I was on tour, or I was in a band. It's just like a duo called the Driftwood Singers, and we flew to New York for a few shows and to meet with like managers and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So that would have been my first time. I think I was like 18 years old, and I was like, wow. I had left a few times to go. I'd been in the Southwest on tour a few times, but hadn't really. The bulk of the traveling that I had done had been like when I was a kid, when my parents would move around and stuff like that. My dad lived in Florida for a while, and then going to visit relatives and stuff like that in Indiana and Kansas and Missouri and Oklahoma. Because what that's such like an iconic place, especially for like I was a kid that was like raised by like the movies and like TV, so it's like the romance of like coming out even in this direction was like I've had a love-hate relationship with New York because I also like have terrible anxiety. So every time I've come, it's been on tour, so I have to drive into the city, and I'm just like, this is a nightmare. But now I've gotten to a place where I'm like, okay, this is kind of manageable, or like I at least know what to expect. I just have to not give a shit about anyone that's a pedestrian, like at all. Like if anybody lives or dies, like it doesn't matter to you. You have to
Nice. You've adapted well.
Yeah.
We were talking about Henry Rollins,
Yeah.
a minute ago, and he's probably got bits, and other people have bits about East Coast people going to California and like driving and stuff. And,
Yeah. No one. I mean, yeah. The difference is, I think, in New York, no one gives a fuck about anything, anybody on the road, or like paying attention to any law. And in LA, people are just stupid. They just don't. Drive. You turn into a zombie sitting in your car all day. So I think it just like your brain physically like shuts down and you can't. So when you're driving, you just drive like an idiot. So I'll sit and like I sit in the car like all day and like drive, whatever, put it on cruise control. But then I'll get into a city and I'm like, all right, I want to go a little bit faster and like not. It's just slow. They are not in a hurry to get anywhere. Not to like generalize and make generalizations about the lives of people in the Midwest and the South.
So you grew up in California.
I grew up in like West LA. Lived in West LA in Santa Monica, Venice Beach. My elementary school was like a weird evangelical Christian elementary school. So I was like, it's funny to grow up in a big city like LA and still have like, when I was in elementary school in this place, like it still felt like very sheltered. Like you can still like manage to like keep someone in a really tiny box as they're growing up, even in, around everything.
Wow.
But, so yeah, to a certain extent, not sheltered. After I left that place, like I went to Catholic school after that, and I was like, whoa, Catholic school, these kids are crazy. That kid said shit. Middle school at this point.
These kids are repressed. They live in fear. They're about to explode.
Yeah. Exactly. It's terrifying.
Singing, playing, writing, and
actually, no, not really. Like neither of my parents really listened to music at all. I mean, my dad listened to like Hank Williams and stuff like that, and I remember taking like road trips and stuff like that with him when I was a little kid, and he'd had like some cassette tapes, Hank Williams tape, and like Colin Ray he liked a lot, Garth Brooks, like that kind of like 90s country stuff, aside from like the Hank and stuff like that. So that was like pretty much the only music. And then my mom would listen to Muskrat Love, was the only song that she thought existed. She'd talk about Muskrat Love like all the time.
Oh no, she talked about Muskrat Love.
That was like
discussions about Muskrat Love. Okay,
for a while that was our only like when my mom was like, I think once I had picked up the music thing and she was like trying to like be the mom and like care and like relate. Like Muskrat Love was like the only thing I feel like, and this could be, I mean, it just looking back at it now, like might have been like the only. She's like, okay, well, the kid likes music. Like, okay, Muskrat Love. I know something about music.
Okay, that song. Oh my god.
But like, God.
Muskrat Love. I mean, come on,
Muskrat Susie.
Muskrat Susie and Muskrat. What was the other?
Muskrat Sam.
Was it Sam? Okay.
I think
Do the
so.
Jitterbug in Muskrat Land.
Yeah. My mom, I think, knew the first line of that song, and she would just repeat. I don't know if she knew anything after that, but she liked that or like knew about that at least. She was like the one song, and then like Jimmy Buffett. I feel like she would talk about Jimmy Buffett, which is funny.
Which is funny because you backlash against
in
Jimmy.
that song. I'm like, I hate Jimmy Buffett. Yeah.
That's a great line.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not a big Jimmy Buffett fan.
But
They
it's
used to
the,
come into my friend that because I worked at this guitar shop in Santa Monica, called McCabe's Guitar Shop, and some of my friends that worked there, they would tell these stories about the guys that would come in that were deadheads, and they would talk about because some guys from the dead had came and played at McCabe's, and they would come in and be like, "Is that the chair that so and so sat in?"
Right.
And they would just fuck with him and be like, "Yeah, that's the chair."
That's the
and
chair.
then the guy would go in and sit and play dead songs for like 4 hours in the guitar shop.
That's so funny.
Which
But
is I mean, yeah, I do that kind of stuff though too. Like, I'm guilty of it.
That, it's so funny because you can make fun of people.
Yeah.
Like that do that for
But
the
then
dead.
you're like, wait a
But then
minute.
I'm there at Bruce's house going, did Bruce walk on those steps right there? Is that and like we were talking about last night
Yeah.
with Bob Dylan, because we were talking
Yeah.
about the Born to Run house and
Oh, dude. Phil Spector.
I think of that movie Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, the alarm clock was set to "I Got You, Babe,"
Yeah.
and everybody's "I got you, babe." Back in the New York groove,
And we're back.
as you will be tonight.
Yeah, the New York groove. I'll be like having a panic attack on the sidewalk somewhere.
So we're talking about the '70s, or well, not the '70s, but your mom and Muskrat Love.
Yeah, Muskrat Love.
Growing up in California.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, my mom grew up in Kansas too, and but she's she's the California vibe. I feel like, or like she's like blonde, Jimmy Buffett kind of. Not that that's particularly California, just like coastal, kind of, vibe of person, I suppose.
Right. So your parents were kind of California people in that sense, or?
I mean, I guess so. I, they were had, I mean, my dad, I think, kind of, it seemed, he's just like, really go with the flow, kind of like has like this like super long, he looks like Tarzan, kind of like, or like Tarzan of the beach. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, kind of.
Brothers and sisters, or?
Yeah, I have a brother with my dad, and a stepbrother with my dad, and then my two stepbrothers, a little brother and a sister, my mom and her new husband. Or not, I mean, not new, he's been around my entire life. But like, most current. Yeah. Just little guys. Not little. They're like 16. I don't see them that often now. It's like they're like the age that like I remember very vividly now, and I'm like, oh fuck, dude, I'm sorry. Don't.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were talking about Kurt last night.
Yo, yeah.
A lot and everything, and he had his sister that he was always trying to give advice to, and
Yeah, his sister.
yeah, he was always trying to guide her and say, hey man, look how I screwed up, don't
Yeah.
ever.
That's what actually. Wow, yeah. I remember reading that book. Yeah, no, I will have conversations like that with my little brother. Not so much my sister. My little sister's 14, so she's like almost at the place that's like terrible.
Yeah,
to be at, but like not quite. Yeah. My little brother's, I think, like right in the shit now, or at least like when I remember being that age, I was like, "Fuck, this is like the worst time." Like, how? Because when you're young, you think like, or you don't like understand yet that your birthright is like misery, that there's like the promise of like good thing. Like you think, I feel like coming into the world that like maybe that there's. You get something, or like there's a consolation prize for like being a person, or I don't know. It's a fairly bleak thing to say, I suppose.
you made a transition to where you're no longer in California. You're making albums, touring, and everything.
Yeah. So I was let's see. I was in I mean I got a if the long story is like I had my mom goes, you need to play. She's like, you got to be a well-rounded. She's like, when I was a kid, we had to take music lessons, and like I had showed no interest in music really, because I wanted to write. Like I wanted to be a writer, or like before that I wanted to be an actor, but I wanted to be a writer, and and she was like, you gotta, it's gonna be piano or guitar, but like it's like 11, 12 years old or something like that when this happened. But you got to do it because that's going to make you a well-rounded person. And so they got me this classical guitar, and then it was like over, and like I was like, it's hard to be a bad student, I think, at that age, but I was a really good student, and just like everything fell off. I didn't care about anything anymore. I was like, all I'm doing is playing guitar.
Wow.
That's all I want to do. Eventually it led to me like dropping out of school. And, I was just like,
Wow.
needed so much time to focus on that, or I felt like it was really important, like it had to be done like right then. Like I couldn't.
What was that? That was from like age 12
to like
16 or
16,
something?
yeah, trying to learn, and joining bands and stuff like that, like being in like weirdo like punk bands and like
Right, and that was, and because you were in LA, that was part of it, because
Yeah.
everybody's like, dad was in show business, every kid was probably playing instruments, and
Yeah, I mean, there's like at that point, I don't think I really knew anyone that was in like showbiz or like showbiz kids or anything like that yet. Like it was all like I can't even remember what people's like parents would do really, but like there's kids that like I remember like I there's this guy John McQueenie is like my best friend in middle school, and I got this guitar, and I was like, "Hey man, you know how you do? You're like you trick your friend into like buying a bass guitar." And you're like, "Yeah man, dude, bass. Like I wish I played bass." Because you're thinking it out in your head, like, man, if he gets a bass, like I know this other kid, he doesn't like us very much, but he's a drummer. If I can trick him into getting a bass, because no one wants to play bass at that age, like start a band. I mean, it was kind of like that. I mean, John was like also like my best. Like he was a kid that I like lived in his like at his house just because I would stay there every weekend and stuff like that. So I was like, man, my best friend. I'm gonna get him to buy a bass. Like it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna have this band. It's gonna be amazing. Like,
Yeah.
not even really. I don't even think I understood like what a bass was, or like I was like, you just have to have it. Every band's got it. Like that's just I could put together the fact that I was like, you need at least a bass, a guitar, and a drummer. But yeah, so I started bands and stuff like that, or I joined bands and then when I was like 15, I joined this band with some older dudes that some like Cal Arts guys, which Cal Arts is an art school just north of LA where I went briefly. But I started this weird like Tom Waits kind of inspired. It's like where Tom Waits meets like like meets Nirvana, meets Hank Williams, meets like
Nice.
Elliott Smith or something. It's just a weirdo group of like meets like the Beats, because like I was obsessed with the Beat Poets when I was in high school. I was like, this is like what it is, and like I was like, this is. But yeah, so I was in bands, and I made a record. I made and then I went to this art school for a year to study music. I got like my GED, and that was like what you needed to get into this school. And I was like, man, I'm gonna go to music school. It's gonna be awesome. I went to music school, and like immediately, like just my drinking like went to like from if it was at like 60, it went to like 120, like really intense. But I quit this other band that I'd been in for like 5 years. I was like, man, I'm done with that. I was like, I want to start a old time I want to start an old time close harmony group like the Carter family, or like the Louvin brothers. So I quit that, which is like so weird in like California, and like everyone, I feel like, everyone's just like, what the fuck? Or like, like I haven't talked to a lot of people from around that time, but I feel like I remember the look on people's faces. Like, I don't even know like what that is. And like, that's like, great, dude.
And of course,
Good.
a lot of this stuff probably came into style like later.
Well, yeah, which is
Like back
funny
into
because
style.
it came, like now I feel like that's a really like a hip thing to do, or like there's the hip versions of that. But at the time it was like a buddy of mine who is this trumpet player, who's this amazing trumpet player we went to school with, introduced me to this girl, Pearl Charles, that was he was like, this is the only other person I know that likes that kind of music that you listen to, all that old country stuff. And I was like, that's amazing. And so I was like, I'm in love with you. Let's do
That's awesome.
let's start this, this weird close harmony duo. And so I quit this other band and started that, and then we pretty much immediately started going on tour and going on the road and
Oh, that's great. And she was,
making records.
and that was
stuff.
Larry's daughter,
Yeah, that's
Larry Charles from
Larry
the,
Charles' daughter. Yeah.
Seinfeld. And
Yeah. So that was in that band for like 3 years, and we dated, and then it just like ended in this fucking like explosion of like awful, and like it was, at the time like the biggest thing that had ever happened to me, like the way that this ended, because it was so, I like lived with this person for like 3 years, and I'd never like lived with anyone before, in any real kind of way. Certainly not like my girlfriend or whatever, and bandmate and like business partner.
oh, yeah, you guys were like totally intertwined.
Yeah, and so it ended in this really like dark. It was such a bleak, like terrifying, like to think about the person
Oh my
that
god.
that I became because of that, and like to was at the time. It's just really funny. It's
So that
funny now looking back on it, but I still write about her in that.
so
kind
that
of
was after
situation.
music school and the
That was,
drinking, and then
that
there
was after music school.
Pearl.
That was like that was the drinking just kind of steadily, like, like I gained like maybe 125 pounds
Jeez.
just like from drinking.
That's amazing.
So like, I was like big, I was like bloated all the time. Like I looked like Father Death, like, or like, like I looked like Santa Claus on like a really intense, crazy 5-week bender. Like,
Wow. If we
seriously, like there's
Brian,
photos, there's
Brian
proof.
Wilson phase.
There's
you know?
proof, yeah. As I was looked like 4 of me basically, and was
Wow.
just like all the time. Like there was like.
Is that just because like
No, it's just
we're
I
just sitting home and drinking?
it was mostly private drinking, or
Wow.
like I go sit in my car. It's when I was at art school, and like sit and drink in my car, and like eventually just be like, I'm not gonna go back to class. I'm too drunk, and then go get more drunk. Or like like go
Right.
find like whatever I wanted to take. Like go find some
Yeah, I suppose
Coke, or
when you're okay, yeah.
when you're at art school, like you just there's all that access to like everything is around because everyone's crazy.
Yeah.
Like a a degenerate drug user
Okay.
type person, or like it's easy to like. I say that sarcastically. Yeah. So yeah, no, I was in that, and then I quit that band because we broke up, and then we like toured for a year after we broke up. So then it was like touring with like my mortal enemy, sitting with the person that I hated the most in the world in the car next to me, like all day, every day, all year.
And that's Pearl?
Yeah, it was Pearl, and so then I was like, I can't do this. I have to. I bailed. I was still drinking at the time. I was like wasted. And I called her. I was like, I'm done.
Did it make
Yeah.
sense to stick together because you had written songs together and you had all this like work invested into the
Yeah,
whole
I mean,
thing?
there was a lot invested in it. Like it was that band did better than any other thing I had been a part of at that point. So I felt like I was like, oh man, this is like kind of this is going somewhere. At least it's like doing well right now. Like I should stick it out, and like, you know, all the emotional bullshit will sort itself out. And then I was just like, I like realized I was like, no, I'm like totally like, this is like, you know, just prolonged like suicide that's like happening. I'm just like killing myself just to, you know, emotionally I can't handle it.
You gotta deal with it sometime. But
Yeah, fucking yeah. This'll you'll need to This will need to get out eventually, but it's right now it's terrifying. Didn't.
so I'm guessing at the end of that, you realized from now on I have to do stuff that's sort of self-contained. So
Yeah, totally. I mean, was like, after that, I was like, I never want to be in a band again. That changes. I mean, I miss being in a band, but I was like,
yeah,
I realized I was like, I can do this full time if I do it alone because I don't have anything else going on. Like, I like to drive, you know, I like to, I like to be alone, you know, is the perfect thing. And then I was like, man, I should have just done it alone the whole fucking time.
yeah, but you know, you might not have the same
Yeah,
perspective, or whatever, or something.
yeah,
You
no,
know,
it would have been different. I wouldn't have had like the same, like the heartbreak that I got from that situation was super useful, I think, later.
yeah,
It's like,
and maybe it's better to be sort of fully formed, or
yeah,
something.
yeah, I think so. It was better. I don't regret. I don't think anything from about how all that stuff went down. So I've been doing the solo for only 2 years. I mean, I write like every day. So there's like there's a massive just stuff that's waiting to go at any moment.
I love your songs, man. This is all great stuff. I just
Thanks, man.
there's like no duds in the bunch. I just here comes another song, and